Hi guys, this is your first video on your Do Now review questions for the rational functions test. This first video is for the first topic, which is direct and inverse variation. So the first problem that we have is a word problem that talks about inverse variation. So if you just read through the problem in order, you'll see that it says the amount of hours, so we're going to call that H, it takes to landscape a home varies. So whenever you see varies, as soon as you see that, you're going to write equals. And then inversely, right? So inversely means that it's a division problem. You have k in the numerator divided by the next variable, which in this case is going to be the amount of workers. So that's the function that I'm working with. So the part A of the problem says it takes 6 workers. Workers is going to be W. So 6 workers takes them 12 hours to landscape a property, and they want to know what the constant of variation is. So that works out because then we only have one unknown, and then I can use that unknown to use that to figure out k and then write the problem. So that means for part A I have 12 is equal to k divided by 6, and then you just use simple arithmetic to kind of solve for k. So I'm going to solve for k by multiplying both sides by 6. It'll cancel here. And that tells me that k is equal to 72. Okay, so what that information gives me is that the equation that models this function they're talking about is h is equal to 72 divided by w. So what that's going to allow me to do is to solve for either hours or workers once I'm given one of the other variables. So in part B, it's saying how long would it take 10 workers when W is equal to 10 to complete the same job. So that means that H is equal to 72, and instead of W this time, I'm going to plug in 10 for the 10 workers, and that's equal to 7.2, and my units is hours. Okay, so that means that this was my function that modeled the entire situation. And using that function, I was able to calculate that 10 workers would take 7.2 hours to finish the same job. So the next problem that we have here is to determine whether each of the following is direct, inverse, or neither variation. So before we do that, what we're going to have to do is write each of the equations in y equals form. So A is actually already in y equals form, it's just in the reverse order. But A is basically telling me that y is equal to 1/2 x. Okay, the tables we'll come back to in a second, so we'll come back to B and D. C is already in y equals form, E is, F and G are not, right? So we're going to solve for y. By dividing both sides by x, I'm going to get that y is equal to 2 over x, which actually makes E and F the same. And then for G, y is equal to 2 minus x. Okay, so here's what we're looking for. Direct variation is modeled by the equation y equals k times x, which means that the constant of variation is always, the constant of variation k is always equal to y divided by x. Okay, so that's something to keep in mind. Inverse variation means that y is equal to k divided by x, which means the constant of variation k is always equal to y times x. Okay, so if I take a look at part A, I see division, but in actuality, because the k is in the numerator, that gives it away that this is actually direct variation. And that's direct because I can rewrite it as a constant k times x. So my constant k is going to be 1/2. Part B is a table, right? So I need to look for what the relationship between the numbers are. So either the relationship needs to be that y divided by x is constant, or y times x is constant. So if I notice 4 divided by 2, that's 2. 6 divided by 3, 2. 8 divided by 4, 2. And 10 divided by 5, also 2. Okay, so since that y divided by x is constant, like I see over here, that means that part B is direct. Part C is also direct because I have -2 times x, so my constant of variation is -2. On part D, I'm going to do this test of comparing y and x. So 4 over 3 is not the same as 6 divided by 4. And likewise, 4 times 3 is 12, where 6 times 4 is 24. So since that doesn't solve the relationship for direct or indirect, that's a neither. E is going to be inverse. And E and F are the same function, so E and F are both inverse, and the reason for that is because you see division and your X in the denominator with no other operations. X in the denominator with no other operations is a giveaway that is indirect variation. And then G has neither as well because that is not multiplication or division.